Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Trojan Talk. Welcome back to our podcast. I'm Jeff Christenberry alongside TA sophomore Zach Taranko. And we appreciate all the people who watched and reached out about episode 1. Some good reviews. And now we're going to move on to episode 2. How you doing, Zach?
I'm doing pretty well. It's a Friday. It's nice outside. And it's looking like this weekend's going to be nice on Mother's Day. So that'll be good to spend some time with the family and, get to watch some sports.
Yes, let's hope so. So last week what we did, we talked about some TA sports and then, of course, about the NFL draft. Let's just start off real quickly there. We mentioned it on our broadcast the other night about girls lacrosse, but last week we just talked about the first round. In general, just give a couple quick thoughts on the Falcons' overall draft after they went through the 7 rounds.
It was a good draft. I mean, obviously, I was happy with the Kyle Pitts pick which is, I think, really all they needed. But they went for mostly defensive players in the rounds 2 through 7s, which is exactly what they needed. Hopefully, their offense will be able to outdo the terrible defense, which is the hope for this upcoming year. But we'll see how it goes. But they drafted no quarterbacks. So I know they're not trying to rebuild, which is nice because I hate rebuilds.
You guys have done that a lot over the last decade or so anyway,
yeah.
A couple different coaches. But yeah, and for the Patriots, I thought they had a good draft. Again, it's really tough to tell. We talked about Mac Jones already, but some of the other guys, get the guy from Alabama they traded up for. So it's interesting to see, traded up in the second round. Some off-the-field issues, but hopefully he comes through. And then filled some other holes. I think a lot of people were a little perplexed they didn't draft a wide receiver earlier or their cornerback at all. So we'll have to see, but I'm really excited. For me, the biggest thing is the NFL schedule comes out next week. And I'm a Patriots season ticket holder, so obviously all I care about is when is Tom Brady coming next year.
Yep.
No, you cannot have tickets, either for you or anybody listening out there. I've been asked already many times, unless someone blows me away, unless you want to give me a new car or something, I'll be the one cheering Tom Brady on with some select people. So we'll see. That'll be a fun day.
Yeah.
Moving on to Thornton Academy sports here. Last week we featured the boys lacrosse team. Today we're going to feature the girls lacrosse team. So first, just some general discussion. We broadcasted a game the other night, live streamed it on the TA Facebook page. Thornton Academy against Biddeford. TA came in at 2-1, Biddeford 2-2. But boy, it was two different teams. Now the conditions were pretty horrific, very windy and rainy and cold. Not that windy, but definitely rainy and cold. And Biddeford kind of came from the start and just dominated the Trojans, winning by 10. What did you see from that game that maybe surprised you a little bit in terms of the final scoreline?
Well, I'm surprised that the Trojans weren't able to hold that there because they started pretty offensively in that second half, scoring a goal in the first minute there. That was a pretty good start for the Trojans. I think that I was hoping or assuming they might have a little bit of an offensive start there, but Abby Allen and Valentina LaFlame, the two most offensive players in that Biddeford team, just came out and continued to score, and they dominated the whole game. But yeah, the conditions were not too great. During the whole game, it was rainy, it was wet. That ball was, when it hit the ground, it was rolling pretty fast. So it wasn't probably the best game from either team, although I think Biddeford played exceptional. So, but I wouldn't say too bad for the Trojans. That their roster's got a lot of younger players on it. I know that a couple of sophomores haven't really played on the lacrosse team before, but hopefully throughout the season they'll get better and won't have games like that again.
Yeah, it's tough in those conditions. It really favors teams that don't drop the ball too much. And when you have someone like Allen on your team, I mean, there were so many times where she just took the ball and just bruised her way into the circle, got fouled, either scored a goal or got fouled for a free position attempt and buried it. You just can't do that against an athlete. I mean, but she's the best athlete on the field. And for TA, it's been feast or famine. They had a game that they won 19-1, then also some losses as well. So it's a younger team, a team that hasn't played a lot in 2 years, a new goalie this year as well. So they're just trying to find that spark, I think. And in girls lacrosse, if you go against a team that has that one superstar, it can be very tough to stop because it's not as physical a game as boys lacrosse. You can't just have someone to beat them up with the stick or whatever. So it's really a matter of being very good on defense. And in those conditions, once you get down a little bit, it was close. It was 5-1 near the late in the first half, and then second half was all Tigers. So as girls lacrosse, they're playing today on the road at Falmouth, which is always, at least in the boys lacrosse, is a big matchup. So, and we'll be live streaming their game against Kennebunk on Monday. Kennebunk is a very good team, so that could be a very tough challenge for the Trojans. But we'll talk about our live streaming schedule later on. But first, we want to bring in our first guest of the podcast, and hopefully every week we'll have a guest, either a Thornton Academy student or coach or someone from the general sports media to talk about their specialty. And today we're happy to have girls lacrosse senior Izzy White, who was out there the other day, and of course we're going to talk about the conditions. So Izzy, I want to welcome you into our podcast and ask, first of all, what was it like to play out there in those conditions the other day?
It was definitely a challenge. It was slipping out of all of our pockets, like our passes weren't crisp and straight. So it definitely was a challenge, and it was very cold, I'd have to say. So we had to fight through that. And our offense was kind of struggling a little bit, working through the rain, trying to figure things out. But we tried our best. Yes, it was a loss, but we learned from it. We practiced the things we struggled with in practice the next day, so it was perfectly fine. But we needed it as a team.
So you guys, the game didn't end up going so well for you guys. What is it like? In general, when you're down by a few goals, it's tough to come back. But in those conditions, was it a little extra like, oh my gosh, we're not only down 7-1, but boy, it is just miserable out here. How mentally tough do you have to be to overcome that and still give it your best for the rest of the game?
Yeah, it's definitely mentally tough. If you're down that much, you're not gonna really come back. So you just got to play as hard as you can. Maybe try to get more goals. Work on stuff that you've been trying in practice to see if it works. That's what we tried to do. It didn't work out as much, but it wasn't bad, I'd have to say, but the conditions weren't good.
Not great. And
No.
broadcasting it too was miserable, and we weren't even outside. So.
Yes.
So in general, just talk about the season so far. Now, coming off, for you in the spring sports, for all you spring athletes, you had no season last year. What was it like just coming back from that and getting back into practice and having a totally different crew? Because the sophomore, you were sophomores, the juniors are gone, the seniors are gone. What was that like?
It was kind of challenging because we didn't know each other. Usually we meet before the season, bond, so we go into the season knowing more about each other. This year was kind of hard because of COVID. We couldn't really practice preseason. So it was like new people. We had to learn each other, like how we played together. But I feel like all of us were grateful that we could get on the field after this long break of no sports.
And you guys have had a pretty good season so far, up and down.
Yes.
And talk about that, because you've had a game where you won like 19-1, and then games that you've lost by 10 goals. So what is it? Let's use your example against Biddeford. You have someone like Gabby Allen, who's just like just a star player.
Yes.
How difficult is it? When you give up a few goals early on to really stay confident, because you do see a lot of blowouts in girls lacrosse.
Yes, you do. So we try to practice. If they have a good player, we try to practice their skills. Try to play a good defense, get it on the draw. Abby Allen is a great player. Love her. She did a good job in that game. We just weren't ready for her because we didn't really have a practice where we knew how she was, because we haven't played her in 2 years. So it was a struggle. We learned from it. Hopefully we get to play them again in playoffs, so we know what to do now. So we'll see.
And it's getting likely. They're going to probably have a very similar record than you guys, so you will see them again. Talk about just a general, what's a big misconception that people have about girls lacrosse that maybe they haven't played before?
First of all I hear when people watch it, it's so boring. Why is there so many calls? Well, all the calls are necessary because it can get a little aggressive. But they just think it's, you just run back and forth, try to shoot. But it's actually more than that. You have to get the good plays going to get a goal, get that shooting space so you can have the opportunity. It's more than just passing around.
It is interesting because it is you compared to boys lacrosse, and boys lacrosse is just straight physicality.
Yeah.
But what I've heard a lot from actually Coach Agresti a little bit is like in why Coach Davies is also around. It's a lot like basketball in terms of defensively. Like, you can't just be physical with your stick. You have to be good. So what is it like, trying to learn those different skills, and just talk a little bit about especially defense and how you have to play it, because you can't just check them off the ball like you can in boys lacrosse.
Yeah, so defense, it is a lot like basketball. You have to move your feet, not like push up against the girl, make sure your stick is not in their head sphere. It's a lot of rules, and if you do foul in the 8, it is an 8-meter shot. So it's really hard. You have to pay attention to everything you're doing. Also, shooting space, you have to stay with your girl. And just you can't wander around. You have to stay with someone. It's a lot of practice, but you'll get the hang of it once you start doing it.
Now, free position attempts, let's talk about those for a second, because those, again, when we saw Allen the other day, it was not only that she scored a lot of goals, but you get fouled, get those free position attempts, and they're not guaranteed goals, but it's how much do you practice those? Because they're not exactly like penalty shots in soccer, but they obviously are a huge a huge opportunity to score goals. So how often do you practice those?
We practice them often. We try to do them without defense, and then with defense, it makes a big difference because you have people coming at you at both sides, so you have to shoot the ball before they get to you. You got to figure out that timing and placement in the goal where the goalie is not around. So it takes a lot of practice to figure that out. But yeah, we do practice that a lot to make sure we get those goals on the 8 meters.
We got to talk about Coach Agressi for a little bit. You know, coaches football as well. What is it like on a daily basis? People have had him as a teacher. He's a funny guy. But what is it like having him as a coach every day for the spring?
Oh, I love him as a coach. He's mostly a defensive coach, and he's really good at it. He knows what he's doing. When we're struggling, he figures out what we can do in practice the next day to solve that problem. And then in the next game, we're doing perfectly fine. So he does really good as a coach. I really enjoy him. I've had him since freshman year, so I have nothing to complain about.
What about looking at tonight's game against Kennebunk, a good team? What do you know about them? And again, it's tough to tell because you can really only go from the few games this year, but what have you heard about them in terms of the challenge they'll face for you?
I heard they're really good. Their defense is different. They play with a backer defense, which means they chase you if you come far out. So we just have to find a strategy to work through that. They do have a good offense. Emily Archibald plays basketball. She does the draws. So we'll just have to figure out a good strategy to get those, but not hang our heads if we're losing by a lot. We can still have fun with it if they're a good team. So we just have to play through it.
Yeah, it's a learning experience, and you want to build good habits no matter what. And the weather's going to be a lot better than it was last week
for
as
sure.
well. What's the one thing that you think your team has to improve upon before the playoffs to make a deep run?
I feel like our transition needs to be a little bit quicker. We definitely need to win more draws. That's been our number one struggle is we get the ball back, we score, but every time we go back to the draw, we lose it and they score back. So definitely that. Our defense is getting a lot better. They've improved since the first game. I'm really happy with how they're playing. And offense, we just need to work together as a team, talking a lot. And being on the same page.
And in general, just as coming to the end of the school year, what have been your thoughts about this year being a student at TA, and obviously with some restrictions, but you've been needless to be able to get out and play some sports as well. What has the year been like, and what are you looking for at the end of the year?
It's been really slow, I'd have to say, with remote and in person. I'm glad that we get to go in 4 days a week now. I'm so happy. Especially with sports, now we get to watch them, be fan section. Maybe not as big as we thought, but it's still fan section. I've been happy with this year because our year last year got cut short. So I'm just glad we have things. And I'm excited for graduation, to graduate with all my peers that I've grown up with. So.
And to be live this year. Hopefully
yes.
It's going to have some people there, which is a lot better than last year.
So exciting.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. I do want to give you, every time we have a guest, if you want to give a shout out to your Instagram or TikTok, if anybody wants to go there, you can.
Oh, geez. Okay, yeah. My Instagram is Isabella.or_White, either one. You'll probably find a senior picture of me. And TikTok, no.
Not so much? All right, that's fine. That's totally fine.
Yes.
All right, well, thanks for joining us, and good luck the rest of the year.
Thank you so much.
All right, well, we want to thank Izzy for coming in, and we'll see who we have in next week. But let's move on now to some of the other sports teams. Again, we're going to feature one team each week. We'll just do a little update on some of the others. So today we're going to talk about the baseball team. And Zach, they've started about as hot as possible with a 5-0 start, averaging 13.5 runs a game, only allowing 1.2 runs a game. It's just been, again, the best start possible. And do you think they can continue this as we move on toward the next part of the schedule?
I think it might be a little bit trickier. The next 5 games are on the road, so playing at home is a little bit easier. It's a little more comfortable for some players. Obviously, the 13.5 runs a game is pretty spectacular. So obviously they've got something going for them right now. I don't think that they'll have too much trouble this season, but hopefully they can keep that going in the next couple of games. What's
interesting too is you look at their schedule, and because of COVID and everything, they're doing a lot of double headers, and they have not had any of those. And they have the first one. Again, they had the first one this past weekend against South Portland. They have another one this coming Friday against Scarborough. Then they have another one against Bonnie Eagle on the 22nd, and another one against Westbrook on the 29th. So almost a majority of the rest of the games kind of clustered together are going to be double headers, which is going to put some strains on your pitching, some strains on your bench as well. So that's going to be a different dynamic that every team's going to have to deal with. But one of the players that we want to talk about a little bit, and hopefully, or maybe we'll have him on next week, is Cody Boker. Boker. I never know which way to pronounce it. I've heard it in multiple ways.
A lot of people do it different. I say Bowker.
I think Bowker probably is the way. We'll ask him. No, Bowker is actually he is a private pay day student here at Thornton Academy and travels a long distance, which we'll talk about with him, to come here at Thornton Academy. So it's obviously a great school for him, and it's paid off for him as well, as he's already committed to go to Georgetown to play baseball, which is pretty incredible considering he's only a junior. And I believe that happened last year too, during his sophomore year, that he was committed. So what do you think it means for this program, this TA baseball program, which again over the years has sent a lot of great players to the next level, but never really won that elusive state championship in a long time. But what does it say for Cody and the team to have someone at that kind of level, especially how fast you can throw the baseball?
That's great for the Trojans baseball team. Obviously, not only is he, he's not just a senior this year, he's a junior, so he's going to have this year and the year after. But it's definitely good for the Trojans team. But I think it's also great for Cody that he's already committed, so it's not like this kind of like I got to play great every day to prove that I can win a scholarship and go to a school. He's like, I got a scholarship, I need to now show that I'm a great player, and he just gets to go out and play every game to the best of his ability. Which is, I think, is a little more easy, less nerve-wracking for him, but better for the TA team. And I think that probably this year and next year we'll be have a good team. I know the baseball team also is pretty young, so next year will probably be much better, as some of those guys will have more experience on the team.
Yeah, it's always interesting when you get that scholarship. It's the pressure goes off, but do you play almost? So some people do you play even better when you have that pressure on? It's interesting. He's obviously done pretty well this year. If you get a chance to go out and watch a game here at TA, watch him pitch, he can throw in the upper 80s. It's pretty cool to watch. So let's so talking about going to watch games, we have our kind of random question of the day, TA sports question. Being a fan, being a member of the TA fan section, student section, which you don't really need to join the club or anything, you just kind of show up. We've seen a lot of them at games this year so far for lacrosse games and baseball. For you as a student, what is the best day or event for being part of the fan section? And the four options we're giving you are a rally, either a homecoming rally, which obviously we haven't had in a while now, or a Battle of the Bridge rally or something else. Is it a state championship game, going to Fitzpatrick Stadium to watch football or boys lacrosse or any other team that's going to a state championship game? Is it the blackout night, which is the one home night football game during the school year? Again, we didn't have it this year, but we have in the past. Or is it homecoming, which is kind of a big event because it's the game in the afternoon and then, of course, the dance at night. So for you, what's the best day as a fan?
I would say the best day as a fan is a blackout game. It's just a really fun game. It's obviously at night and everyone's wearing black clothes, and it's the fan section gets pretty rowdy. Hopefully, no one gets hurt or anything. I don't think anyone really has gotten hurt, but it's usually mostly fun. I mean, I usually like rallies and homecoming. State championship games are pretty good, although the basketball, not last year, but the year before,
right.
I went to the semifinal game and the state championship game, and the way that it worked, you had to because the way that the cross insurance arena is, you had to cram yourself in. It was not very enjoyable to just have to stand or kind of sit, with somebody else in one seat, because you just there's not enough space. But all of those things are really fun. A lot of students have a lot of school spirit, so it's a lot of fun to be around with your friends during those events.
Yeah, the state championship game, I remember because I was down on the floor taking photos, and the student section moved 4 or 5 times. Yeah. Because you have to basically rush in, and it's not really assigned seatings for the students, and they sat in one section, and then as soon as 2 or 3 sets of people started moving towards the end, behind the end line, everybody followed them, and then all of a sudden someone went back. It was crazy. And then for the blackout night, you say no one gets hurt, but there have been comments about the amount of baby powder and other things that are thrown up.
People throw baby powder.
Yeah, and it's a really great picture. There's no question, it's great video, it's a great picture. But with the wind going, it not only covers the students, but it wafts over to the other parts. And there are definitely some people who aren't too happy with that. And I think it's going to be one of those things where it's going to be. I don't have any information on this, but it's probably going to be discouraged to bring in, but the kids will find a way to do it.
Yeah.
But it's a tradition. The night game is really cool. We have always the largest student section there, so I know a lot of people would like to have all the games at night, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But yeah, and so that's it for TA Sports for now. Let's move on to some professional sports. We'll start off with Aaron Rodgers. So a lot of chirping around the draft about Aaron Rodgers wanting to get traded. I guess he was offered some kind of massive contract and turned it down. He feels a little scorned. What are your thoughts on the Aaron Rodgers situation, and do you think he's going to play in Green Bay ever again?
I mean, I think he'll stay. A lot of the teams that needed a quarterback drafted a quarterback. If you're drafting a quarterback, especially somebody high like Trey Lance or Justin Fields, you don't want to bring in Aaron Rodgers and have someone younger not be able to get any playing time, not be able to get any experience. I'm pretty surprised that Green Bay didn't draft a wide receiver. I think that's exactly what he needed. I mean, Devontae Adams is good, but if you got a one receiver, that can be stopped by any team. And I think that drafting a wide receiver would have been a good idea for Green Bay. Obviously, I can't really picture Aaron Rodgers in a different uniform other than Green Bay. But I mean, it wasn't his fault. The coach made that terrible. Let's kick a field goal during the NFC Championship game. Not his fault.
Or give up basically a Hail Mary at the end of the first half, which really puts you behind the 8 ball.
So, I mean, it's just not his fault, but they did well last year. They just couldn't beat Tampa Bay. So, I mean, I would assume he'd go back. I don't think that they'll be like a Super Bowl winning team anytime soon. But I don't think I see Rodgers any other place.
See, I disagree. I think he's gone. I don't think he's ever going to play there again. I think the Packers have had a poor track record. Brett Favre is the same situation. They waited too long. They basically let Brett Favre get too big.
Yeah.
And so he was bigger than the team, and I think Aaron Rodgers is there now. I think there's only a couple teams he could go to. I think Denver and the Raiders are the two teams I could see him going to. And do they think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year? If not, then what's the point? Why not just move on to Jordan Love and I don't say rebuild, but give it a shot? So I don't know. The quarterbacks control their destiny so much more in the NFL than they ever have before. And not as bad as the NBA in terms of their superstars, but it's getting close to there. So we'll see what happens on that. We'll keep an eye out. Moving on to hockey, this is kind of your specialty, so I'm gonna rely on you a little bit. Tom Wilson, which some people may not know who that is, but if you do know who he is, you have a strong opinion about him one way or the other. Basically, a modern day goon in the NHL, and recently had another incident. It's not even so much the incident, but it was the punishment or the lack of punishment. So why don't you give us a quick rundown of what situation happened?
Yeah, so as you said, Tom Wilson, a repeat offender when it comes to getting
suspended. He plays for the Capitals, by the way.
The Capitals, yep. He's been suspended at least once in the last 5 years. Suspensions happen when penalties, are brought in that are like, throwing somebody's head in the boards or pushing them in the ground. And so it's not, he's, pretty aggressive guy. And last, I believe Monday, Capitals played the Rangers. Tom Wilson punches Pavel Buchnevich, a Rangers player, his head into the ground, and then threw another player over his back. Pretty aggressive, and everyone's like, okay, yep. Wilson, I don't believe he got thrown out of the game, but after he has a hearing with the NHL Players Association, and it's like, okay, he's going to get suspended, and they give him only a $5,000 fine, which is the maximum fine, but people are pretty frustrated. And then it kind of escalated. The Rangers organization posted like something on Instagram, their own internet site, and they basically saying that the general manager of the Players Association is not doing his job right. The Rangers get fined $250,000 for the comment, and then it just so happens that the next day, both the president and the GM of the Rangers both get fired, which is not good. But then, so what even made it worse is that the Rangers and the Capitals play each other again on Wednesday. And before the game even started, there was a full line brawl. The fourth line and the I think the Capitals' third line, before the puck even dropped, 3 guys were in the box, and there were 6 fights in the first 10 minutes. It was just crazy. And now I think even to top that off, Pavel Buchnevich high-sticked Anthony Mantha of the Capitals during that game, gets suspended twice, and Wilson still has no suspension. So it's just a lot of people are frustrated with the Players Association for the lack of punishment on Wilson, but obviously I think that they need to go back after the season and look back at this and make a new choice.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that, again, for the casual hockey fan or not even a hockey fan, is the fact that $5,000 is the biggest fine for certain violations. I mean, that is nothing. Even to these guys, and the NHL guys make less than any other big 4 sports or 3 sports, but it's kind of absurd to me. And if you watch some of these hits that he does, it's like assault. Hockey's a tough game, but boy, do it time after time. You figure he's got his coming to him at some point, but it happens in the NHL, and hopefully they can fix their structure, because this does not make the league look good that guys like that can still play and not even really be fined all that much. So. Yeah. And moving to the NBA now. So coming to the end of the season, Celtics are currently around the 6th seed. This interested about the play-in tournament. So LeBron James makes some comments last year about how excited he is that teams like Memphis are going to play in the play-in tournament, try to give him a chance to make the playoffs. And now the Lakers, because of a lot of injuries, are now slated to or at least are headed towards playing in the play-in tournament. Now he thinks it should be abolished. Which, look, I'm not a LeBron guy. I mean, on the court, he's definitely a top 2 or 3 player of all time, but I feel like he's got way too much A-Rod in him. Like always thinking that he's the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah.
And so, I have my own opinions about LeBron. I think again it makes him kind of look silly to question the playing game or the playing schedule if he was great for it last year. But what do you think about the playing tournament? And right now, who's your favorite to make the finals?
Well, I think for the West, at least, if we're going to focus on the West, I think my favorite is Utah. I think it was Denver with how good Nikolai Jokic played this year. I don't really enjoy LeBron, especially recently. He's been, it's hard. It's kind of not hypocritical, but almost it's like he's like excited for it, and then they're going to have to play in it, and they're like, oh, I don't want to do it anymore. I mean, obviously, you don't want to have to play an extra game, or even if you're in the bottom 2, 9 or 10, you play 2 games. Because 7 goes on. The winner of 7 and 8 goes on to automatically. The loser of 7 and 8 plays the winner of 9 and 10. Right? So you play 2 extra games. You're tired, maybe injuries,
and then you got to play the 1 seed or the 2 seed.
Yeah,
too.
So nobody really wants to do that. But I just think that it's not their fault. LeBron got hurt. AD got hurt. Comes back
again last night.
Yeah, got hurt again. So obviously not the best situation for the Lakers, but. Yeah, I mean,
I'm not too sad about that. I've no love lost for the Lakers, but
I'm thinking probably Utah and Brooklyn. I don't have any trust in the 76ers. I don't think anybody low is going to make any runs this year. I don't think the Celtics are any good. I don't think Miami's any good.
I think I agree with Brooklyn. I think the Lakers are still going to make it.
Really?
I think LeBron's a master manipulator, and I don't mean that in a terrible way, but he knows how to motivate his team.
Yeah.
So I think it's a big if. I mean, if he comes back decently healthy and AD comes back healthy, even if they're 6, 7, 8 seed, I think they can still make a run because they're just that good when they want to be. So, and the Celtics right now, again, kind of up and down this year. I have no idea what to expect in the playoffs. It's one of those years where, let's say they go to the playoffs and they exit in the first or second round, you're going to look back and say like, oh yeah, well it makes sense because they were average all year.
Yeah.
Whereas if they make, right now you're sitting here being like, oh, they'll turn it on. They'll go to the Eastern Conference Finals again and give Brooklyn or Milwaukee or 76ers a run for their money. But it's one of those things we're kind of pretending like, oh, they'll be fine. They'll eventually get healthy. But it's like, no, they may not. You never know what's going to happen to Marcus Smart or Tatum or what they're going to get from Brown or some of the bench guys, especially the new guys that they brought in. So, interesting year for the Celtics. I'm not a huge Green teamer, so I haven't watched every game, but I know that I did watch some of that Spurs game, which is a kind of a joke. The Spurs were up 30-31 or something and lost, but the NBA playoffs will be interesting. But again, it's kind of a bigger discussion that we won't get into today. Is what's the future of the Celtics team? Is Brad Stevens, Danny Ainge, are they in their positions for life? Again, in this modern NBA, I don't care the fact that Jaylen Brown and Tatum, who are great young players, just signed new deals. It's only going to take a year or two for them to be like, you know what, I can't win here. I want to go to the Clippers. I want to go to Brooklyn and replace Kyrie or something. So that's the toughest part about being an NBA fan right now is even when you sign your young guys, there's no guarantee because there's more and more track record, and Anthony Davis is one of them. James Harden is one of them that sign these big deals, and it really doesn't mean anything because if they don't want them, the problem is they're all making so much money. It comes down to just wanting to win. And they only think they can win with other superstars, and that's been documented a lot. So we'll see as the NBA playoffs comes close. As we kind of wrap up today's episode, kind of another off-the-wall question, TA related, our cafeteria here at Thornton Academy. Now, it's obviously been different this year because of COVID, but I wanted to ask you, since you get the cafeteria sometimes, not every day, you're kind of a bag luncher. How many days a week are you bag lunch versus buy lunch?
Well, I'm only here 2 days a week, so I think maybe once or twice.
So like 50. But in a normal year, what would you do?
I'd probably go once or twice a week. I get some hot lunch.
Okay, so what would you say is we're not going to go best worst because we don't want to, but what is the best item from the caf? What's your go-to in a normal year?
In a normal year, I would say probably whenever they make something with like Mexican-style foods, quesadillas, tacos. I think that they do a good job, making fresh food, and it tastes really good, and they have a lot of variety. But I think I also sometimes just go with the plain old like crispy chicken sandwich. Those are good. Yeah. You get 2 little pieces of chicken with 2 buns. You get some ketchup, and it's just a great lunch.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want with it. You can do. Whenever I get that once in a while. It's like, okay, I can really go any way here. I can go barbecue sauce. I can go ketchup. I could go hot sauce. The chicken. This is why chicken sandwiches are pretty much the best thing in the world because you can go a lot of different ways. For me, the big thing I miss the most this year is the salad bar. Like they used to have the open salad bar. I'd grab that Caesar salad with some chicken or something else almost every day. Now they have pre-made salads which are good, but they're pretty small and they have a lot of variety, which is great.
Yeah.
But I would say even with the salads, by far the best thing out there is the chili. Now, if you like chili, I don't know what it is. You know what it is? It's the perfect amount of spice. It's a spicy chili. So if you don't like spice, it's going to be tough. And it's homemade right here. That's the great thing about our dining halls. Almost everything's homemade, even the salad dressings.
Yeah.
No, I mean, some of the other stuff not this year because of COVID, but the chili's great. And the only problem with the chili is it's super hot, and I don't mean spicy. I mean it's like hot to the touch.
Yes.
So if you're one of the first people to get in there in the caf, you only have 25 minutes to eat during our lunch period for teachers, unless you have a free block. And so you have to like constantly stir the thing and cool it down, because if not, you'll burn your mouth out there. But I want to say shout out to the caf for the chili. Now, they had it a couple times this year, and I haven't seen it in the last 3 weeks. So, Gavin, the food services manager, if you're listening, let's get some chili back in there. Get some chili back in my life, because then then the side item can be almost anything. You can go chips, you can go salad, you can go anything. So that's a little calf discussion here as we wrap things up. And I want to talk about just our stream schedule over the next couple weeks. So today, Monday, we have Kennebunk girls lacrosse. TA hosting Kennebunk. That's at 4:30. Tomorrow, Tuesday, boys lacrosse against Falmouth. Huge tilt at Hill Stadium. Starts at 5 o'clock. Falmouth won the first matchup between those two teams. But, of course, TA has the last laugh over the last couple state championships. And then this Friday, we have girls lacrosse again playing the Portland Bulldogs at 4:30 at Hill Stadium. All the games you can check out at facebook.com/Thornton Academy. And also check the TA Athletics Twitter feed at TA Trojan Sports for all of the updates. Zach, anything else as we head towards the end of this podcast, episode number 2?
Well, it's nice to be here. It's always good to record these. If you're looking to watch a live stream, I would say, just to reiterate again, go watch the Tuesday game. The Falmouth game will be great. I know one of the things is that a lot of the Thornton players were frustrated with the amount of celebrating done by Falmouth. That was a close one. It was only 9-8. It was a very close game, and so I think the Trojans players are ready to go and get a win, and it'll be at home. So if you're looking for something to watch, go watch that game. I think it's at 5 p.m. You said so.
Yep. Show up, or if you can't, watch it on the live stream. Make some comments.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we want to thank again our guest Izzy White as well from the girls lacrosse team, and hopefully we'll have a guest on again next week. So for Zach Duranko, I'm Jeff Christopher saying thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next week.